Well, welcome back to the show, everybody. We got Seth's head in my face here, Seth and Sean Sports Radio, here on StreamYard. Welcome back, and you can find us on Twitter, which nobody uses anymore.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably drop it soon. I can't take it anymore.
Facebook, which really nobody ever uses anymore. Maybe we have to go to IG. I'm not an IG guy, so I'm not really sure.
TikTok. I don't use IG. I use Post, I guess, but whatever.
Can we make a TikTok just for us? I mean, that would be.
Does that mean we have to do weird dances?
That's just two old men doing TikTok. That's kind of weird.
We are old men.
We are old men. Okay, so we have a Hall of Fame inductee.
Congratulations.
To add with Fred McGriff. We have a Final Four in the NFL, and we'll get to that. We have Syracuse losing again to North Carolina last night, and it seems like
what happened at the end of the game?
So what happened? So, okay, I guess we'll start there first. So Syracuse came all the way back. They were winning by 1. North Carolina had a foul shot. They missed the foul shot, so they're down 1. Bless you.
Excuse me.
They're down 1, except the ball is about to go out of bounds, and Joe Girard dives to the ball, hits the ball back to the North Carolina guy, who basically has a layup. So now Syracuse is down by 1 with 17 seconds left. And Judah Mintz, our top freshman, certainly the highest-ranked freshman. I wouldn't say he's our top freshman, but the highest-ranked freshman, does exactly what he did in Miami. He took the ball to the hole, which is fine, except he did it with an elbow and put an elbow to the uppercut of the chin of the North Carolina player.
Yeah, I saw that, and they called a charge.
And they called not only a charge, but a flagrant foul. So here you have flagrant 1 because he knocked his head. So flagrant 1. So it's 2 shots and the ball at that point. North Carolina misses the first shot. Hits the first shot, misses the second, misses 1. And so they're up by 3, but now they're up by 2, but now they have the ball, right? And the game's over. Like there's 7 seconds left. The game's over. So that's what happened. And so once again, Syracuse loses after being ahead, coming all the way back, being ahead in the second half with less than a minute left. And the same thing happens in that Judah Mintz he charged and he caused an offensive foul, and that's the end of the game. And look, my buddy Ryan Fisher and I were debating how, if at all, you replace Jim Boeheim and who you would replace him with. And Ryan had an interesting first of all, we all know Jim Boeheim does not want the Mike Krzyzewski send-off. He does not want a year in which there's a coach in waiting.
No, he'll just quit. I think he'll just quit after a year and be after the year and be done.
Right. So if there is going to be a quitting, it will happen by May 1st. Because the Final Four is the first week in April. His hypothesis is that Mike Hopkins is not doing great right now in Washington.
No.
He's okay. He had a couple of great seasons. He had a couple of bad seasons. But he got the seasoning that he needs to come back if he wants to. And so Boeheim could very easily say, I'm done. Hopkins could easily Hopkins and Washington can have an easy out, right? Where we're not firing him, but we're letting him go back to Syracuse where he always wanted to be. And everybody looks good in this. And you have one shot to do that, and that's this year. Because after this year, Hopkins is probably gone anyway, if he's not fired.
Oh, I mean,
I see the logic.
If you're going to fire Hopkins, and I'm actually looking up right now because I have no idea how Washington is doing. But
they're about a 500
Washington
team.
is. What do you say?
They're a 500 team. I mean, they're not great.
They're a team that had the number one draft pick in the country, and Markelle Fultz did nothing.
Yep.
They had 2 eventual draft. I forget if they were first or second rounds in Jaden McDaniel and Isaiah Stewart.
Both
done
first
really
rounders.
Nothing.
Both first rounders. No, they went. They went 23-6 one year. They went 24-8 one year. I mean, they had legitimate teams, but the fact is, in the last couple of years, he hasn't done anything. So
I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it now. 21-13, 27-9, 15-17, 5-21, but that's COVID year, so I'm not going to go crazy.
Yep.
17-15, and currently 12-8.
Right. So he got the experience, right? Which is what they need. They need a coach with some experience. So he went out and got the experience, and now he comes back. Look, it makes a perfect story. I'm not sure it works, but it makes a perfect story.
I guess the question is, and this is almost a Paul Miyake question because nobody knows this more than Paul. Do you go outside? Like, why wouldn't you go outside?
I don't want Hopkins. I want a Hurley.
Yeah, you want to go outside the family.
So we were debating which, and you can answer these questions as a person outside of the realm of Syracuse. And we did talk about Maryland being basically the Syracuse of the South. And
yeah, it's a pretty. I like that we're the South, but the idea is simple.
Well, you're the South of us.
Yeah, both of us are should be top 15 to 20 programs.
Sure. So my question is UConn a better program than Syracuse for a coach? You and I have had this discussion. Which are better jobs, right? Is UConn a better job than Syracuse for basketball?
I think it's relatively equivalent.
Okay.
Obviously, UConn has had more success over the last 15 years.
Correct.
Which, to be fair, they've had more success than anybody over the last 15 years for all intents and purposes. So that's not a disparaging on Cuse. Neither of them are really near a metropolitan area. They both have pretty rabid fan bases. The one positive that you probably have in UConn that you don't in Syracuse is you're not the king there. Where for better or for worse, you're not the king. Gino Auriemma is the king there.
Yep.
I think it's a relatively lateral move.
Okay. So let's play the other game. Is Arizona State a better or worse job than Syracuse?
It's a worse job, but would you rather live in Scottsdale, Arizona, or Syracuse, New York?
I get it. Like I said,
it's relative.
Okay.
Arizona State's nowhere near as good a job as Syracuse is.
If you are going to make this change and go out of the family, and granted, the family is wide, right? There is a lot of family to go around, especially those that are already on staff with Adrian Autry and Jerry McNamara. Like, you have that. If you are John Whitlock and you are going out of the family, it better damn well be a name. Like, it's got to be a Hurley. It's got to be.
I don't think a Bobby Hurley is a great pull. Arizona State, what has Arizona State done?
I am not saying it is or it isn't. My point is, it has.
Yes, you can't go. This is not the job. Most likely, you're going to the mid-major.
This is not Chris Collins. You're not pulling Chris Collins.
No, you're either going to stay in the family or you're going to be able to pull a name.
Right. You're not getting Steve Wojciechowski. Like, he's not doing it for me.
No.
But Danny Hurley would.
Yes.
Danny Hurley absolutely would. And is there another name that you could pull? And does Nate Oates come? Is he may. I
mean, I don't. He did coach at Buffalo, so he knows that area pretty well. And for those of you who don't know, Nate Oates was my preferable pick.
So Nate Oates is now coaching at Alabama. Let's say where he is. Yeah.
I mean, Alabama is number 3 or number 4 in the country. There's no pressure there.
Nope.
Because it's not a basketball school. He makes, I think, $7 million a year. I don't think you can get him to leave.
Well, that's the other thing.
I don't see why he would.
Seth, that's the other thing. Syracuse is not going to pay. Syracuse pays right now, they pay Boeheim around $2.4 million. So,
that's not going to, I mean, that is not going to do it.
Correct.
And the problem is, for what we're talking about, Alabama is number 2 in the AP right now. So, I mean, I'm just kind of looking through some of these teams.
So Danny Hurley is earning $2.75 million. So would Syracuse give him 3? Probably. But he's not going to jump for 3.
Right, he's not going to jump for 3.
But that's my point, right? That's exactly what I'm saying. And that's why so I think Hopkins is making about what Boeheim does. So that's why Ryan's.
Yeah, I don't think they go for Hopkins.
Well,
I think Hopkins is too far gone.
Then it's Autry or it's McNamara because
I think that's good because I think that who I think they're going to make a run at
$2.5 million.
I think they make a run at Sean Miller.
Wow. Okay.
Why not?
So right now, Sean Miller, his base salary is $5 million.
He's at Xavier.
Yeah.
Right, but that is if he wants to be Xavier is a very good basketball school.
Sorry, his salary at Xavier is 1.7. It's 1.7, so it would be an increase in salary. And he made 2.9 at Arizona. So you're kind of getting in the middle of that. Look, I don't mind Sean Miller. Like, that works for me. I'm not sure if he would be a sell to Central New York. Look, any person that comes into this program, it has got an uphill battle. It's the Bill Guthridge, which is why you can't, in my opinion, hire the mid-major. And why
but Sean Miller is a little bit of a different situation. Because Sean Miller is not, you don't know if Sean Miller is going to be able to get the high major job again because of what happened in Arizona.
Yep.
Which I think would mean he would be a little bit more apt to take the run at it. Do you make the run at Chris Beard?
So those are very different situations. Yes? Okay.
Yes.
If you're asking me as a Syracuse alum, the reason that Sean Miller got fired or the accusations were that he paid players, right? That was the reason. All right. Right now, everybody's getting paid. So to me, that's the Reggie Bush, should his Heisman Trophy be reinstated type question, right? Everybody's doing it now. Retroactively, okay. There is no way Central New York agrees with the hiring of Chris Beard. None. Zero. They are a way too conservative group that stays too loyal to the team. It doesn't work. I'm not even sure it would work. I'm not even sure if it would work, and I was going to throw out a name, but it's not fair to put a name with that type of accusation. I'm not sure it would work if a former player, whoever that former player was, did what Chris Beard did and was brought back, let alone an outsider doing what Chris Beard did. No way.
Well, the question also is, Chris Beard's girlfriend or fiance, whatever it is, for those of you who don't know, she withdrew the complaint.
Don't care. It's
okay.
Enough.
I'm not saying that I would take him. I'm saying you want a big name who needs a rebuild.
Yeah, that's a big name with a whole lot of baggage. Might as well take Rick Pitino at that point.
But that's my whole point. First of all, Pitino's not going to Syracuse.
And hold on a second. Let me throw this out again. Syracuse has had the same coach for the last 45 years, roughly, right? 45.
Yeah.
We're not a stepping stone job, and we're not hiring somebody to be a stepping stone job. So is Chris Beard's reincarnation is a stepping stone job for him. That's all it is. If he went to Central New York, I cannot.
No. Hold on. If he went to Liberty or something like that, the mid-major, like Sean Miller leaving Arizona goes back to Xavier.
Yep.
Sean Miller is going to be there most likely 2 years, 3 years, and then he's going to go back to a big time job. All people want is someone who's apologetic and is good and wants to rebuild his image. And most people are forgiving of that. I'm not saying they should be. I'm just saying they are.
I agree with that.
I don't think anyone sees Syracuse as a stepping stone job. The only stepping stone it would be is to the NBA. And that there's nothing you can do. But where are you going to go from Cuse? But again, similar to how I see Maryland, I don't see Maryland as a stepping stone job. I think there are people who do see it that way. I don't know what
you and I. So if you asked me that question 10 years ago, I would agree with you. I would. I think, look, you can make the case that in 15 years, there are going to be the haves and the have-nots in college sports, right? Okay. And right now, we have both said Syracuse and Maryland are very much in this. Assume we're not in the Big Ten. You're not in the Big Ten. I'm not in the ACC. You're just listing teams, okay? As to the quality.
You faded out for you cut out for 10. You cut out for 15 seconds. I didn't hear what you said.
If you take the conferences out of the equation, neither one of us is in a conference. You're just taking the top 100 teams, both for basketball and football, and you're putting them in a list, right? I don't even think basketball matters if you just put them in a football list, right? You and I are in the have-nots. We are not in the haves.
Yes.
So
agreed.
So if in 10 years, let's say next year they replace him with Chris Beard, right? And Chris Beard is there for 3 years. And then in 5 years, the haves and the have-nots happen, which could conceivably happen in 5 to 10 years. Maryland and Syracuse are stepping stone jobs. We're basically mid-majors at that point. We are in the have-nots.
Well, I think the only way you look at it that way is if there's only 8 to 10 real halves.
I think that there will probably be 20 to 25 halves.
And you don't think Maryland or Syracuse as a basketball school, or you're just saying
I don't think basketball matters.
Okay, then it is a football school. I understand. Because Maryland is not a football school. Syracuse is not a football school.
We've said this 1,000 times, right? Are there 25 halves that are not Syracuse and Maryland in football? Yeah, 100%.
Yes.
There may be 40 or 50 halves that Syracuse and Maryland are not in. And if you wanted to say that basketball counts, maybe basketball counts 15% of that 100% pie. That still doesn't get us up to the top 25 of those.
I understand. But it's funny. I'm looking through the coaches poll right now. Just for number 1 is Purdue. Purdue would be a have-not.
Yep.
Number 2 is Alabama. That would be. Houston is number 3. That's a have-not. Tennessee. Well, I mean, Tennessee's a have right now, but the last 15 years they haven't been.
There are very few teams in the SEC that you could say would be in the have-nots, only because
they're kind of
of the popularity of their how much money they bring in. So maybe Vanderbilt is a have-not, but other than that, in the SEC, there aren't many.
I'm just kind of thinking out loud of what other coaches would make sense that would be a jump. I actually kind of like the Sean Miller play. I really do, because remember he was at Pittsburgh, so it's not like he has no feeling on the East Coast.
Yeah.
I don't see a Shaka Smart moving there. I don't see it. No, I mean, the problem is I don't know if the guys that are under the Cuse guys are there. I mean, I don't think it's Hopkins. What is your preference? What do you want? Say he retires after this year.
If he retires after this year and I can get Hopkins back for a year or two, I'd like it. I'd like to see what Hopkins does.
No. You can't base it on having him for a year or two.
No, I'd like to see what he brings to the table. Give him a couple. See if he can do it. Like a year or two means if he's successful, then he continues. Obviously.
Right, I get that.
I'm not giving this next guy a long leash. I can't. Because
you're not going to have a choice.
But the thing is, if we're a basketball school and we become irrelevant in basketball set, then what are we? Right now, the only thing that Syracuse has going for them is Jim Boeheim. So when you lose
good soccer team.
Okay. And when you lose Jim Boeheim, unless you become good again, and I mean by good, a top 25 team, you might as well join the AAC at that point. So, no, I'm not giving this guy a long leash. I'm not.
I don't think 2 years is enough.
Then 4 years.
Yeah,
fine.
Look, as a guy who wanted Mark Turgeon 11 years ago.
Yep.
I liked the pickup.
I know. We talked about this 11 years ago on the
show. I liked the move. I thought I mean, Gary, as much as we all love Gary, similar to how all you guys we loved Gary, I think, more than you guys love Jim. Because I think a bunch of you got sick of Jim. Well, most of us really didn't get sick of Gary.
Well, Jim, quite frankly, Gary was not an ass. And you can make the claim that Jim Boeheim is an absolute ass. And some of us love him for being an ass. And some of us say, are you kidding? Like, yes.
He's a curmudgeon.
Well, last night he was questioned as to whether Judah Mintz did that for the second time in the press conference. And he basically shrugged it off and walked off the stage. I mean, that's not
because they're all
because he's like, I've been doing this for 5 years. Get the F out of my face. And you know what? Sometimes that makes sense. And sometimes that doesn't. And last night I was kind of like, I had the same question. Why is the guy even in the game? Like, I don't get it. He plays out of control. I don't get it. But as far as what I want, if I have the option of getting Hopkins, I want Hopkins. If I have the option of getting Danny Hurley over Hopkins, I want Danny Hurley.
Sure.
If I have the option of getting Sean Miller over Hopkins, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that right now.
Yes, you do.
I do.
Sean Miller's gone to 3 Final Eights. Has been a national coach of the year.
Fair enough.
Unless you think he's doing, because as of now, Syracuse is not a stepping stone basketball job, unless it's to the NBA.
I agree with that.
He's not leaving there to go to Louisville or Kentucky. I mean, or I think, he's not going to go to Kentucky anyway. But, I mean, he's not – there's only 4 or 5 jobs that are the top of the top of the top.
Sure.
Kansas, Duke, Carolina, probably UCLA. But let's be honest, Mick Cronin, nobody thought Mick Cronin, when you thought of top 3, 4, 5 coaches in the country, Mick Cronin was not on that list when he went over there, although he's done an excellent job. No, I mean, look, I'm pretty happy with. I was not a big fan of bringing in Kevin Willard. But that being said,
I told you that was a good move when you did.
It is. The team is played pretty hard. They have a chance to be kind of a 9 or a 10 seed, which for a team that he has 3 top 100 recruits coming in. Maryland's pretty. We had 2 or 3 games we really, really crapped the bed, but for the most part, we beat Michigan last week. This has been we're pretty happy.
Yeah. I know. I'd like to be happy.
That's a whole other story that goes way beyond 11 years of sports.
Look, I'd like to be happy with my basketball team. I'd like to be happy with my football team. Right now, I remember having this conversation last year where I was like, every team of mine is doing well. And right now it feels like every team of mine is sucking. So it's kind of the opposite effect of the Islanders losing for no reason whatsoever. Syracuse losing for no reason whatsoever, the Knicks losing for no reason whatsoever, and the Jets just being the Jets. So, but we may get Aaron Rodgers next year, so that could be a whole different ballgame. But
do you really think you're getting Aaron Rodgers?
Yes, I actually do. I think this, and if I can get him at the same price that I got Brett Favre, I would do that 100 out of 100 times.
You're not going to get him at the same price you got Brett Favre. But
if you're Green Bay, what do you do? Tell me.
Oh, no. I'm not disparaging the thought.
If if Aaron Rodgers has the exact same leverage as Brett Favre did, the exact same leverage. He can say, I'm playing, go clear $60 million of cap room. I am not playing. By the way, he has until September 1st to do this. So he could say, I'm retired, and then say on August 15th, by the way, I'm back, go clear $60 million of cap room. Good luck with that. He can say, trade me, and I'm only going to one place. Also, I'm retiring, and I'm playing this game with you guys. If he picks the Jets, that's where he's going. And you know what? The Packers have no choice. They can say either stay with us and we'll clear $60 million of cap room, or we'll trade you if you're the Jets, are you giving up any more than a 4th-round pick that could escalate up to a first to take $32 million of cap room? It's a conditional pick.
Look, if you can get it for a 4th-round pick, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you'll get him. You'll have him for what? 2 more years?
2 to 3 years.
2 to 3 years. You'll be a playoff team. You'll be competitive. Look, I don't blame you if you can get him for that little. Go, please,
Seth. If you can get him, and you can keep the defense the way the defense is, they are. I'm not saying they are the favorite in the AFC East, but they are a favorite in the AFC East.
Depending on where we are with Buffalo.
Right. It's them and Buffalo. It's them and Buffalo.
Yeah. But no, I said they're a definitive playoff team. I wouldn't put them at Kansas City or Cincinnati.
Nope.
But also, let's see what happens. Let's see how Breece Hall comes back.
Yeah.
You're gonna have some room. Wilson is looking like he's gonna be a number 1 wideout.
I got the 11th pick in the draft again. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, we got room, but were you surprised by how well Cincinnati handled Buffalo?
Buffalo hasn't looked the same since the incident. They just haven't. Buffalo's had a hard year in general. Just everything. They had the shootings. They had the snowstorm where people died. They had Hamlin. Cincy's really, really good. I mean, and I was disappointed because all these games stunk. The Cincy game was the one I was really looking forward to because I thought that was going to be the best game of the 4. I mean, look, I went 3-1. I thought the Giants were a live underdog. They were certainly not. Philly looked sensational. But what I don't think I think what this showed was how much Buffalo hurt without Von Miller. Because Cincy, with literally a backup offensive line, dominated the Buffalo front 7.
Yep.
Mixon ran for 100, give or take. Burrow, nothing freaking phases this guy. It's unbelievable. And they look like a Super Bowl winning team. But I'll be honest, kind of all of them do. When was the last time you went into an NFC?
I am very happy to hear you say that Brock Purdy finally looks like a Super Bowl winning quarterback. When you have continually said over the last 4 to 5 weeks, I can't see a rookie winning the Super Bowl. So I am glad you are coming around to my version of the 49ers being a Super Bowl champion.
I don't know how you don't.
I agree with you. I've been saying it for 4 weeks. That team is.
I mean, the defense is great. They have so many talented players right now that. Sorry.
That defense is suffocating. Like, it's the best way to do it. They have copied the Giants. They are the Giants playbook, right? Look, we're going to run the ball. They have Eli Mitchell and McCaffrey now running the ball. We have a tight end that can catch balls off his face, which is pretty cool, right? Debo can even run out of the backfield. We got a front 4 that puts pressure without blitzing all the time. We got linebackers that can cover and that can cover up the defensive secondary, the absence of a great secondary, because they don't have a great secondary.
No, it's a good secondary.
Good secondary. But when you can rush 4 and get to the quarterback and get home, that covers a lot of miscues in the secondary because they don't have to worry about it. The ball doesn't get out there.
Look, Brock got away with a little bit.
Sure, he did.
The throw at the end of the half, he should not have waited 6 seconds to have it land with 1 second left.
He's still a rookie quarterback.
I know, but you can't have it both ways. He's now in the NFC title game.
No, my point is he's going to make mistakes.
Yes.
But I believe the defense is good enough that it won't matter. He can make those mistakes. They didn't need that field goal at the end of the period.
Well, because Dak Prescott looked absolutely terrible. And once Tony Pollard was out, they literally had one offensive weapon.
Well, and that was going to be my statement is we have continually said over and over again over the course of years that it's the Dallas defense that doesn't show up and the offense is explosive. We saw the other day the defense is really good.
Yep.
The offense is lacking weapons. I mean, you put a lot of money into Michael Gallup. Where the heck was he? Dalton Schultz is a free agent after this year. He played very well, but he's a free agent. Tony Pollard has a broken fibia and a high ankle sprain and just had surgery on it. And Ezekiel Elliott will absolutely get cut. 100% get cut.
Yep.
He may resign, but he's going to get cut. Hey, Dallas, where are your weapons? Because other than CeeDee Lamb, I don't see any. And you don't have cap room to do anything. So it's not your offense. It's not your defense. I mean, other than Tavon Diggs taking shot after shot after shot and getting blown by every game. It's not the defense. This was totally the offense.
No, their defense was excellent. Lawrence looked great. Parsons and they really pretty much shut down San Francisco's offense.
Right.
And not that San Francisco has a overwhelming – they have a lot of offensive talent, but they're not a Buffalo or a Kansas City kind of offense.
They do have the one thing.
They're more –
They do have the one thing that no other contender has. They have a field goal kicker that has never missed.
That is true.
And if you want to ask Dallas how that would feel, that's all you have to do is ask Dallas or even Buffalo how that would feel. Having a guy like Robbie Gould that does not miss is a big leg up in the situation. So we have Kansas City, and by the way, screw the NFL for trying to do a neutral site game. That's basically what Joe Burrow said and Joe Mixon said. But ladies and gentlemen, it is coming. I am telling you flat out, it is coming. You will have neutral site games for championships. And Mike Florio said it best. There is no reason for the NFL to put out a press release that 50,000 people bought tickets to an NFL title game that wasn't even sure thing without saying, hey, we can do this and we can do it all the time. And perhaps it is too much of an advantage for the number one seed to have both the bye and the home field advantage. But they don't care. It's all about dollars here. This is dollar upon dollar. And if you can rotate that game, you can set it up just like the college football championship. The semifinals, you will have the same people bidding on these types of games. And it's coming. It's absolutely coming that we're going to have neutral site NFL championship games. All right. Well, but at least for this year, they're going to Kansas City. What are your thoughts here?
I like Cincy. You have a quarterback with a high ankle sprain. You have a Cincy team. Like most of the time, you see these teams that have the pervert, like Georgia had the chip on their shoulder because someone thinks that they should be 7-5, which is all bullshit. We know that. This team legitimately has the chip on their shoulder because people have thought that they were flukes and thought they were a fluke last year. People have when you hear you haven't heard Burrow really until the last couple of weeks mentioned in the Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes threshold. This offensive line has been able to hold up. The defense has been, that defense was fantastic last week against a really good Buffalo offense, and they let up 10 points. I think it's a really even game, but Mahomes is not going to be 100%. He's not going to be 80%. He'll play because he's Patrick freaking Mahomes, but I think Cincy 27-23.
So every year we come to teams like Mahomes, teams like the Chiefs, and we wonder when the lack of a excellent, and I won't say decent, excellent running game comes into play. And I think that is this week. I think this is the week that you see where, and you would see it in a championship game too against the Niners, because good luck with that. In that, if you can't run the ball, you're not going to win this game. And look, the offensive line for Kansas City is very good. Orlando Brown, Thuney, right? They have decent offensive line. But is Pachero that guy? And so far, he hasn't seemed to be that guy. They have continually tried to put Gerald McKinnon in, who screwed me up numerous times in fantasy football. Thank you very much. But all he does
is phenomenal. He's been very good this year, but more as a scat third down catch out of the backfield.
They do, and if Mahomes is not 100%, and Mahomes is not willing to run the ball, which, quite frankly, I wouldn't run the ball with a high ankle sprain either. They're a one-dimensional team. And it's a very good dimension. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you have the best tight end in football. You have proven that your wide receivers are not just Tyreek Hill. You have proven that you can spread the ball around. It's still one dimension, Seth. And I think this is actually, I will go 24-13. I don't even think they'll score more than 13 points. I think that it is more one-sided.
If that is true, does Lou Araguno, and I think that's how you pronounce his name, finally get a head coaching interview?
It's possible. I mean, Eric Bieniemy probably will. I mean, he'll be out of the playoffs finally, so you might get another interview.
I said interview. I didn't say a job.
No,
Bieniemy. No one's even mentioning Bieniemy at this point for a head coaching job.
Indianapolis is mentioning him. He's but in another situation, you'll get to Jeff Saturday is still in that running. And he got a second interview too. So the longer that he's still in the game, the more that you can say, okay, Jeff Irsay is going to hire this guy, right? I mean, but at the same time, let me ask you, Seth, if you're not going to win, if you're not, and the Colts are not going to win, right? Next year they are, I wouldn't say they're a rebuilding team, but they're not a championship team either, right? I mean, can we say that?
No, we can't.
Okay.
Because let's take a look at this team.
Okay.
Now, again, this is a big if. This team has been decimated by injury more than almost anybody.
That's true.
They're off Quentin Nelson, who's the best offensive lineman in football, has been in the last couple of years, had a terrible year. Ryan Kelly, who's an all-pro, did not have a good year. They have a number one wideout in Pittman. They have a number one running back in Taylor.
Yep.
Their defense has been pretty damn good over the years, but Darius, now Shaquille Leonard, I think he goes by, or Shaq Leonard, not Darius anymore.
Leonard, you are correct.
Who has been an all-pro didn't play the entire season. I think he played one game. You're in a weak division, because I'm not sold on Jacksonville being, I'm not there with Jacksonville.
Okay.
I'm just not. So you're not in an overly strong division. And a year ago, they were the team nobody wanted to play in the playoffs, if you remember. I think they lost 27-23 to Buffalo, if I remember correctly, in a really good game.
Okay.
So the question is the quarterback position.
Correct.
And whether it's a draft pick like a Levis or a Stroud, or they trade up for Young, or if they get one of those three quarterbacks, I don't think it's again, I don't know their salary cap position, so I can't really talk about that part. But I don't think it's a horrible job.
Yeah, I can see your point. I can. I just think that in the age of I'm going to spend $20 million on Sean Payton, I can spend $2 million on Jeff Saturday and save myself $18 million. And if you're Jim Irsay and you're not winning a championship with this team, why spend the extra $18 million?
Well, there is a happy medium. I mean, to me, I would look at David Shaw. I would look at, and I don't know who they're looking at. I would look at D'Amico Ryans. I have a feeling. I think D'Amico Ryans gets the job in Houston. That's just my gut.
I agree with that.
And I think he'll be great there. And I think they will give him about a 6-year deal. I think they're going to do the same thing that San Francisco gave to Shanahan, because they know that team can't be rebuilt in a year. That team's going to take 3 years to build up.
Yeah, I'm looking for the second interviews. Hold on. Candidate second interview, Indianapolis. Here we go. Seven candidates for second interviews. Hold on. Where are they? Just saw it. Okay, D'Amico Ryans. Okay, so second interviews are Ejiro, who is the defensive coordinator for Denver. Yep. Jeff Saturday, Dan Quinn, Raheem Morris, D'Amico Ryans. Those are your 7.
Okay. That's Indianapolis.
So
obviously.
nobody
else is interviewing Jeff Saturday.
Yeah, right. So that's Indianapolis.
But
I'm not sure I like any of them.
Indianapolis, to me, is not the team to take a rookie coach on. They're a little bit more of a veteran team. Houston is a rebuild. Carolina, I don't know where you go with Carolina. Wilkes did a hell of a job. The problem is every time you hire a guy who does a really good job as an interim, it just seems to fall flat. Denver is gonna get Peyton, I think. And Arizona, I don't know what the hell you do with Arizona. That to me is a dumpster fire job, because I think they're over the cap. You have a quarterback, $50 million a year, who's tore his ACL. You're going to trade your number one receiver. Your line's not very good. Your best player, Bubba Baker's really good, but I mean, he's a safety. He's not carrying you to anywhere. That I think is a problem.
Yeah. Well, we will talk about that in the upcoming weeks when they make some decisions. So let's move on a little bit from the NFL. So Scott Rowland makes the Hall of Fame. No surprise to me. Surprised that Helton finished 11 votes short, right? And Billy Wagner finished just a little bit less than that. So you can look at both of those guys for next year. Probably, and next year you add on Adrian Beltre, Joe Mauer, and Chase Utley. And David Wright, but David Wright's not making the Hall of Fame. As much he makes my Hall of Fame, but he does not make the Baseball Hall of Fame. He is one of those guys that basically he got hurt. Like, he's one of those guys.
Yep.
So
he's not Mattingly.
Yeah. So I think you have so Beltre to me is an automatic. No question, he gets it. 3,000 hits,
500 homers. Great third baseman.
Did he have 500 homers? I don't think he had 500 homers.
Did he not?
He might have. He might have. 477 homers.
Okay.
No. I'm just saying, right? So he's got only Brooks Robinson finished with more career defensive WAR amongst third basemen. That's a pretty good person to be second to.
Yeah, he never really got the name recognition more because of he played a lot of his career in Texas.
Yep.
I mean, he played a decent amount with the Dodgers. But
the funny thing about Adrian Beltre is how much he signed a huge deal one year, and he didn't live up to the deal. So he hit 48 home runs for the Dodgers when he was 25 years old, and he finished second in the MVP. The next year, he signs a huge deal with Seattle, and he only hits 19 home runs and has 87 RBIs. And for the next 5 years, for the next 6 years, he averages 21 and 79. Not great by any stretch of the imagination. But then you start when he turns 31 and he goes to Boston. And for the next 13 years, he averages 24 and 86, including every Gold Glove known to man, like the perfect fielder. And for 4 years, he actually averaged, 5 years, he averaged over 30 home runs, and over 100 RBIs for a third baseman. And again, we have said this all the time. Third basemen are undervalued in the Hall of Fame, right? They're only.
I can't hear you, dude. Your microphone's going off a little bit.
No, I don't know why. All right, let me try and unmute. Okay,
oh, you're better now. You're better now.
Okay, so So you asked me last week who my new guy is, right? Who's the guy I'm going to push to get into the Hall of Fame? And it's interesting you say that because I think it's going to be Joe Mauer.
Joe Mauer. I knew exactly who it was going to be for you. You didn't. I could have told you that before you even got there. Because he's another borderline case. And he fits your small team, never got the recognition, was one of the best players in the league, and then had a bad couple years to end it. By the way, and I am from a good buddy from Eric who watches and listens to the show from time to time.
Yeah.
This morning, Scott Rowland, Hall of Fame, they let in anyone now.
Oh, boy. What did he say after Harold Baines? Anyway, I think
he said if they let Rowland in, I can think of at least 10 others that should get in.
I would love for him to tell me who those are.
They probably start with names like Barry and Roger and Alex.
Okay.
I'm guessing. I have no idea.
Well, but the thing is about Mauer is if I told you had to pick one of Mauer or Buster Posey, who would you pick?
Probably I don't know. I know Mauer has the better. I think they both won an MVP. I know Mauer won I think Mauer is hitting. I think Mauer has more statistical. I think he won a couple. I know he won a couple batting titles. I know he had some Gold Gloves. I know he played longer. But Posey was the captain and leader of 3 World Series teams.
So which one would you pick?
Probably Posey.
Okay. So Mauer has 2,000 hits. Posey finished with 1,500.
Yeah, I know the statistics don't match up. I get it.
Yeah. And I think that's where you're going to – it'll be interesting when Posey comes on. And granted, that's in 2027, so that's in 4 more years. But if Mauer's still on the ballot when Posey comes on, I'm going to love that conversation. I just am. I think it'll be great. And the question is, at this point, Seth, you are not getting transcendental players anymore. You're just not. Even if you wanted to say Ichiro was one of them, he wouldn't be.
No. In my small Hall of Fame, most of these guys aren't there.
I don't think how many active players would be in? That's a better question for you. Would Justin Verlander be there?
Yes.
With 210 wins.
Best pitcher of his era for a league. Yes.
Is Clayton Kershaw on it?
Yes. Best pitcher in baseball for one of the 5 best pitchers in baseball for 15 years. Yes.
Is Max Scherzer in it?
Probably. Okay. I would think so.
Well, by the way, Max Scherzer has better numbers than Justin Verlander.
Yeah.
But let's go to the hitters. How many hitters right now? Are there any?
Yeah. Mike Trout.
Okay. So Mike Trout's not going to be in a Hall of Fame vote for another 10 years at least.
Right. You're asking Mookie Betts, most likely.
Okay. I guess what I'm saying is how many, if you had an opportunity to vote for the Hall of Fame over the next 10 to 12 years, you wouldn't have anybody in it.
No, as you said, there are very few transformative players. I think you said transcendental, but I think you meant transformative.
But I think the point.
Yeah, none of these players. Look, Scott Rowland's a really nice player. I have no problem with him making it. Billy Wagner is a nice player. None of these guys. I mean, Miggy Cabrera is, I think, the next one that comes to mind where you're just like, okay, this guy was really a great player.
I'd go with that. I agree.
let me see if I can I know ESPN had an article about this. Way too early, 24, 25, 26.
Right. And I was looking at that too. And part of it was how many of these guys, if you say in the next 5 years, let's go through them, right? These guys in your.
Okay, I'll just read these names quickly.
Ichiro's not there, right?
Oh, Ichiro's going to go to the Hall of Fame. You don't think he's going to go to the Hall of Fame?
Ichiro in your Hall of Fame.
It's an unfair question because I don't know what to take. I don't know how to deal with Japan.
You don't. It's the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame.
He's on the border.
Okay. Would it make sense to you that he was a singles hitter and nothing else?
Yeah, I get it. He was a singles hitter and he was a great fielder. I get it.
Man. Okay, Sabathia.
No.
Okay. Felix Hernandez is a no. I'll even tell you that. Okay, Joe Mauer. Is he in it?
No.
He's not in mine.
Not in a small Hall of Fame, no.
Chase Utley?
No.
Not in mine. Buster Posey?
Probably
not. Mine. That's it. That's still 2027. You'd have nobody in the Hall of Fame. So I guess my point is when you had you can make the case in the 50s, 60s, and 70s that you had better Hall of Famers every year for two reasons. Number one, you had a backlog of Hall of Famers because the Hall of Fame didn't start till 1930.
37, 38, something like that.
Number one. Number two, you only had 10 teams.
Yep.
Everybody had a Hall of Famer on their team. Even the Senators had Harmon Killebrew. Even the Tigers had Hank Greenberg. There was always a Hall of Famer on every single team. So you couldn't really say that there was never going to be a Hall of Famer. Perhaps you can make the case that the league is so diluted now that there just isn't that.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly fair.
And I'm not sure you can say that. And when you get to NFL, Seth, you have 9 guys playing a game in baseball. You have 22 playing football. There's a lot bigger of people.
But again, you look in the NBA one, and it feels diluted.
Well, when Dennis Johnson makes the Hall of Fame, it absolutely does.
Or, I mean, that's why I always really liked the small Hall of Fame. I've grown to kind of that's where I was when we started this show 10 years ago. I've kind of gotten past that because, as you said, it's a museum of history, more important than whether Drew Pearson has his head bronzed in Canton for the next 4,000 years. It's a history of football. It's a history of a sport, and for that you do need more people. But when I look at these players, I mean, who is the last no-brainer? I'm just trying to think. No-brainer Hall of Famer. Was it Jeter?
Did Mariano come before?
Mariano was before Jeter because Mariano got in 100%. Jeter did not.
Hold on. So let's see who that would be, right? So Major League Baseball inductees by year, right? And we got about 5 minutes left, so I want Chipper Jones.
Yeah, Chipper Jones was.
Oh, that was after. So Jeter. Yeah, it's Jeter in 2020, and before him, the illustrious Harold Baines. No, it's Mariano.
Mariano in
19. Before that, it was Chipper and maybe Vladdy, maybe Guerrero, but wasn't Trevor Hoffman.
Nope.
The year before, it wasn't Jeff Bagwell because if you asked Nabate Isles, he wasn't convinced.
Okay, yeah.
No. The point is, if they are no doubt Hall of Famers, nobody has a doubt.
You go back a little bit further, though.
Piazza and Griffey, right?
Smoltz, I think, was a no-brainer.
Oh, so was Pedro,
Randy Johnson, Frank Thomas, Greg Maddux. Those are all Tom Glavine. Those are all no doubt Hall of Famers.
Okay, so let's go. And you're right. There are times where this runs dry. So in 2013, 2012, 2011, 2010, 2009, you had Ricky Henderson. So for 5 years, you had no doubt Hall of Famers.
And then you go back to 2007, you have Gwynn and Cal Ripken.
Yep.
I know you're not a Gwynn guy, but I don't think there was any question he was going.
And before that, you have Boggs and Eckersley, and I'm not sure Paul Molitor was a no doubt Hall of Famer, but let's throw him in there. If you want to say a no doubt Hall of Famer, do you have to say he has to be elected on the first ballot?
Probably should be.
Right? Because if not,
yeah, you know what? Yeah, he probably should be.
Right? So first ballot Hall of Famers, I'm going through them. David Ortiz was not a no doubt Hall of Famer. No doubt.
Yeah,
no.
He was a no doubt Hall because of his position, not because of what he.
Right. But I'm saying he was okay. So Jeter, Mariano, Halladay wasn't.
Was a very good player, but he just
Tomei
died
certainly was not. Yeah, Tomei wasn't. Pudge probably was. Griffey, Randy Johnson, Pedro.
Was Griffey overrated? Was Griffey overrated?
Yes. Of course.
The first 10 years, he was as good a player as you ever saw. And the last 7 years just seemed like just really fell flat once he got traded.
Griffey was a better Andrew Jones. Griffey was a better Andrew
I can see the argument.
So the last first ballot Hall of Famer that you could probably say was not a no doubt was either Paul Molitor, Ozzie Smith, because you could make the case that Ozzie got in more on popularity than he did on anything else. And then you keep going back and back and back. And Lou Brock is Lou Brock is Ichiro.
Yeah.
So 1985. That's the last no doubt Hall of Famer. And only if you can make the case that Ichiro is not a no doubt Hall of Famer, which some can and some can't. So anyway. All right. We got 5 minutes left. I will let you go first if you wish.
When we talk about Hall of Fame, there's a great article in The Athletic written by actually someone I knew from Maryland, Seth Emerson, talking about the College Football Hall of Fame. And it's interesting the stupidity of they have specific thresholds you have to hit to become a College Football Hall of Famer. As someone who's been to College Hall of Fame all at once about a week ago, enjoyed it immensely, this is ridiculous. You need to be a first-team All-American player. You need to be a coach you have to have coached 10 years and you have to have won over 60%. Those are your thresholds. I don't understand either of them because to me that's ridiculous. So they were saying how a guy like Howard Schnellenberger, who literally was the one, for those of you who don't know, made Miami. Can't get in because he ended up because his first 5 years in Miami was horrible. Johnny Majors, one of the greatest coaches of all time, coaches at Pittsburgh his last couple of years, isn't allowed in because he's under 60. Mike Leach. Like, these are not guys who are coaching Alabama and Oklahoma. These are guys who are coaching Washington State and Mississippi State and are getting them to this, to these really high levels that they've never been before. The argument with Stetson Bennett, who just won his second national championship as a starter. He's 28-0 as a starter, 26-0, something like that, 26-1. But he's not first team All-American because Caleb Williams is. Wasn't first team last year because Bryce Young was, both who won the Heisman. So he is not deemed eligible for the Hall of Fame. Whether you believe he should be it or not, that he isn't eligible is absolutely utterly ridiculous.
I would agree with you. And I think the coaches are more than the players. I think the players have the ability to shine on their own, while a coach is only as good as his team, right? You can make the case that Barry Sanders rushed for 2,000 yards and was an all-pro on a horrible team like Detroit and had the opportunity to shine. However, if you're a coach on a bad team, it doesn't matter. The other thing that I'm interested in learning is, does that apply to FCS coaches?
It does.
It does.
Because one of the Georgia Southern coaches, you should read the article. I can send it to you.
I will.
He won 3 championships with Georgia Southern. He only coached 8 years. I don't know the specifics.
Sure.
He's not eligible.
That's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
You're absolutely right. That's exactly the case. Okay. So next week, we will have the start of Super Bowl bye week, which I still can't stand, but we'll have it. And there's a reason behind it, which we'll get into next week, and we'll tell the story as to why. And we'll catch up a little bit more on the NBA because we haven't talked about that whatsoever in the last 6-7 months. So for Seth Kamens,
except for free agent, until the free agent market hit 6 months ago, because that's more
July
interesting.
4th, my friends, Kevin Durant will be signing with no, he won't. Seth Kamens, this is Sean Palmer, StreamYard. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a